Welcome back to Beyond Revenue, the podcast where we unpack the real stories behind revenue growth. I'm your host, Michael Jäger, and we are kicking off season 3. And this season will look quite different to the 2 seasons before. After we've done more than 50 recordings already, 50 episodes where we discussed several tactics and growth strategies and how CROs mainly operate, we now learned that our audience really wants more detail and really want to have real depth on actionable takeaways. That's why we have restructured our way we do podcasts, and we're introducing a new 20-minute format, shorter, sharper, and higher focused. Each episode is designed to give you practical experience, insights you can actually apply on your own go-to-market motions. Every guest this season is a GTM leader who will share 2 tactics that genuinely worked and 1 tactic that didn't work at all and what the person has learned from it. Today's episode is all about moving from inbound versus outbound to Mixbound. And I'm very excited to have you joined, Sara, Sales Director for Nordics and UKI at N.Rich, and as well as a founder and author and speaker. So, Sara, very great to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Let's do this.
To set the stage, I would say you can introduce yourself best. Give us a quick overview about your role today.
Yes. So for my role today, to make sense, I will give a bit of background. So I have been on the revenue side my entire career, which is 23 years now. I'm more gray-haired than you can see in this camera, which you do when you spend so much time in revenue. During my years, I started as an individual contributor, which most of the people who are leading sales efforts today did at the time. And I spent the last 12 to 15 years now in GTM for SaaS companies, targeting mid-market and enterprise. I have also done all different roles once I moved over to leadership, which was the same time period. Spent a lot of times in both startups and scale-ups, either growing from 10 to 15 people up to 200 or growing from 200 up to 800 people, right? So I have been spending time in both these sides because it's very different how we run our business based on the size of the company and the maturity of the company. I spent 2.5 years at an agency. I went in as head of revenue. They were 7 at the time. And 2 years later, I exited when we were 45. I then had a revenue team of 12 people. I also worked a lot in GTM projects because we were a marketing agency. And that period really changed how I view the customer buying journey that we go through, from the marketing first touch point all the way to sales. Because as we know, sales actually comes in pretty late nowadays. But it gave me understanding, and I became sort of a hybrid because I was in a lot of projects with CMOs and marketing directors at the time. Sure. Both widening my understanding of their frustrations with sales and also broadening my horizon related to how little sales actually impacts today in a sales process, right? So then I would say that I sort of landed in a GTM understanding that I didn't have before that. And I believe that this journey was very beneficial to me. And I believe that a lot of sales leaders really would benefit from fully getting a grasp of what's going on the silent part of your funnel that you don't know about until you start a sales process. And in some cases, you never know about it because they go to other vendors, right?
Fair. Super interesting.
And the current state right now, I'm at N.Rich. I came in as head of our biz dev because there was a vacancy, and then I moved over to heading up 2 territories. I also have Benelux on the side, so I basically take care of our EMEA region with teams, both marketing, sales, and customer success. And we have the same motion in the US with the sales director there running that motion. So we target both of these territories as a company. Cool. So that's my background.
Super interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Various different positions. I think I'm very looking forward to our discussion. Let's get started with one question. What does upstream GTM really mean?
So if you want to summarize the motion, because I see a lot of companies right now going from an SMB built motion where the structure is built for SMB or small, medium-sized companies. A lot of these companies are now moving upstream because they are looking for higher ACV, average contract value. They are looking for more impact per account, and they're looking to drive bigger revenue with less people involved and less effort involved. Because if you look at the SMB motion, if you haven't digitalized it completely today, which you should have, then that's a lot of effort for very little money comparatively. So moving upstream means going from that SMB operation system over to a mid-market, top mid-market enterprise operation system, which looks very differently and operates very differently to the SMB motion. So that's what totally it means. Increase. Moving up to the higher ACV deals.
Thanks. Let's look a little bit on the markets you operate in, Nordics, UKI. What's the biggest GTM challenges you see companies have there?
That's a good question because it does differ a bit between the markets. We, unfortunately, in EMEA is very shattered, right? Based on market maturity. In the UKI side, we have a lot more heaviness on systems. We want, as companies, that systems should solve our problems. It rarely does, which poses problems both in process and for people and for data in the UKI, which means that the challenges there is tying everything together into a single motion. The maturity in the organization is also a bit more hierarchical than it is in the Nordics. In Nordics, we rely a lot on teamwork and consensus. The UKI is not. So we have people in the organization struggling to maintain and protect their specific unit, which doesn't lead to collaboration as easily as it does if you have a viewpoint that we're doing this as a team. So that's one of the challenges, to actually get these team heads of the different units, both for marketing, sales, and customer success, to work together as a team, targeting a certain account list, right? This is a move that is harder in the UKI than it is in the Nordics, where we are built more culturally for consensus. We want to be team players, and we have a lot more flat organizations. So the challenges in the Nordics is more related to immaturity about how to run GTM instead of running marketing or sales separately. We have the will to collaborate, but we don't have the tech stack the same way the UKI does. And we also don't have the extensive knowledge that is required from a GTM consultancy operation system to build that into reality fast, which is something a lot of companies in the Nordics now need to do. If you haven't even started experimenting with building agents yet, understanding the tech structure that you need in place to support the process is a lot harder. So I would say in Nordics, it's competence gap on the tech side, on the AI side, on the understanding of how to utilize tooling. In the UKI, it's more hierarchy, and it's more related to getting the team to want to work together by increasing incentive to do so. To lose power in your unit, to give it over to creating better results.
Perfect. That's a great foundation. Let's try to start it into it. Yeah. So, what's one GTM assumption you believed 5 years ago that completely has changed?
So I would say that I didn't predict the strong movement that I see to go upstream. I didn't think about that as a concept before AI showed up on stage. I think that we had more access to data when AI came onto stage, and we had more ability to do calculations. And suddenly we realized that the SMB operations doesn't give us the money we need. We have a ceiling on how much we can grow. I didn't see that coming until AI actually launched, and then I started writing articles about it. So my GTM assumption would be that the companies doing enterprise and mid-market would keep doing that, and the SMB and PLG would keep doing that for a long time. I don't see it like that anymore. So that was an assumption that was unimaginable for me without AI's entry. And when AI came into play, I was like, all right, of course this is going to start happening now. But 5 years ago, this was not what I saw in front of me. I saw that companies would stay in the lanes of the business motions that they already had in place to a higher extent.
Sure. Yeah. What's a clear signal for you that inbound and outbound teams are not really aligned or not operating aligned?
Yeah, so I would say that it comes back to motions again, because outbound teams today, in the different markets, at least I operate this, I can see the same from our US colleagues, actually. They have similar signals in companies. But outbound today is being scaled by AI, which means that more shit in, more shit out faster. Like, it's not great. Like, we have lost the ability to write really compelling messaging because we're leaving it over to an agent or a bot that can't do that, because outbound messaging needs to evoke emotions. And AI is not great at that because that's not their ballpark, right? So that makes sort of sense to me. The problem is that we're now hunting efficiency rather than we're hunting ability to actually connect with individuals, because even if AI is doing outreach for us, the receiver is not letting AI drive their emotional engagement in a vendor, as an example. So outbound is struggling. We see that the connect rates have started suffering the last couple of years. One of the reasons is because outbound has scaled so that your email is filled with 100 emails every day because of AI. High. Yes, it's so high. So we're getting lower connect rates over the phone. We're getting lower connect rates over email. We're getting lower connect rates on LinkedIn DMs as well. And since all of these numbers are sort of drizzling down, the question is not do more. That's not the solution. The solution is do a lot better and less. And a lot of companies are still in denial about that. They just think they will find like the golden messaging and then they will put it into AI. AI will just bring them the meetings. And unfortunately, today, that's not how it works. So when it comes to outbound,
I see that as well.
Right? It's a problem because we are expecting more effort to just bring in more results in the same percentage level. It doesn't. And then we have the launch of call screening in the US through Apple iOS, right? Which also suddenly means that we need to leave a voice note that's so compelling in 2 sentences that people would want to talk to us. It's a very hard to find skill right now in the BDRs and the SDRs that are growing up in this environment because they have no imagination, because they don't need to practice their imagination. So the skills that makes us connect to people are slowly being washed away in the organizations on the junior level. And the seniors are moving over to AE because they don't want to be BDRs anymore. So we're sort of losing the skill set. And for us, when we look at outbound for N.Rich as an example, we don't do outbound anymore. We do signal-led account warming. That's what we work with. So for our entire structure, all the marketing efforts we do will warm the account until they want to see us, basically. So when we reach out through our BDRs that we do have, they reach out based on they have already been in so much contact with us that they know our brand, they have trust, and they want to have a conversation with us. And that we're doing, just to give you guys a tip when it comes to what works in the territory of EMEA right now, what we're doing is we're doing 3 different efforts on the marketing side. We're doing account-based only because we only work upstream. We only work with market and enterprise. That's our whole territory focus, which means in the Nordics, I have 443 accounts that are tier 1. That's it. That's all we care about for this year, right? And what we do is we do interviews very similar to this. We're just launching that in the US now, which will be interviews with CMOs. GTM secrets is what we call them. We do fireside chats, webinars with C-level leaders that are in the marketing side to discuss what is actually happening in our companies right now. What do we need? How do we sell this concept to the management group? Because they rarely understood marketing before. Now they're going to have to understand GTM. It's a hard conversation to have. And third, we do very small, intimate dinners. For us, once a BDR invites to that dinner, this is a Mixbound. We're doing outbound on existing interest on the accounts we want to target that already knows about us. So it's a Mixbound effort. It's not outbound anymore. It's not inbound. It's us focusing and honing in on the account list we want to work with. So that's one thing that I think a lot of companies need to start addressing soon. How are we going to slim down our target audience, our target list of accounts,
and build trust,
so we can be specific and build trust with them? Yes.
Super interesting. And we see that as well all over, right? Yeah. It's like the noise is so high, still optimizing for more faster instead of quality. And I'm always asking our clients, like, would you read your own email? Would you reply to your own email?
They never would.
And they would never. And it's like, look, don't write them. The others are human as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think you need to rethink how you want to build to it, how you build the trust, because with the trust you sign the deals, right?
And this is the thing too. You want to build the trust through people who are in your target audience list. Like we want to interview CMOs on the target count list we have. We want to use that to start the relationship, right? Then we can also spread that word to the other C-levels who are on the same level, on the same types of accounts, because they're very similar to each other. They run the same motions. They have the same structure internally. They have the same challenges. So we want to use that target list account person to open up the trust to other target accounts in the same spectrum. But it requires like really zoning in. As soon as a company comes to me and they say, we have 10,000 accounts in Europe we want to target, and then we start breaking it down into different territories in the EMEA territory, right? And we look at the Nordics and they have 4,000 companies. Like, okay, that's great. So this year, you guys are going to target 600 of them, not more. And this is how we're going to build that. because then you will get the high ACV deals, because all of these companies should be on a higher level of ACV. And you will also build relationships, because once you've built within this group, they will expand for you out into the rest of the group, right? So we need to be smart about this.
Interesting. Let's talk about the tactic. The first tactic where you say, this is something that really worked for you. And it would be nice if you could walk us through a little bit, very specific on how you blending, for example, inbound, outbound, made a measurable difference, right? So how do you really define it, how you walked it through, and how it worked out?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think that I mentioned sort of the things that we're looking into doing this year. The reason why we're doing that this year is because it worked last year, like a charm, right? So the coming of the interviews, the fireside chats, and ending with the dinner, going in tandem throughout the year in all territories, is something that we had great success with last year. So when accounts started engaging with because N.Rich is an ABM platform, which we do display ads, once accounts on that list, because then you only target those accounts. Once accounts on those lists that were our target audience started engaging with display ads, the next step was to have SDR and AE multi-thread those accounts. So we are going at them from both directions. This is something that we really see drive value in the accounts and move them forward faster than if we were to only do marketing. So we have marketing doing air support. Yeah.
Okay, so you get signals if they engage. Then you double down from both sides with an ABM on the... Okay.
Exactly. So we do ABM and ABS in tandem. So account-based sales, account-based marketing in tandem. As soon as the account has it what we judge to be engaged, which basically means they are looking at third-party data, tells us that they are in market. They're looking for solutions like ours, or they're looking at competitors. And first-party intent is they're engaging with our ads, they're on our website, they're showing interest based on different territories, because this depends on which unit of that company is engaging with.
Interesting. And then the metric is a score, or how do you add it up?
The metric is a score. Yes, it's a score. Okay. So we build that score first in our own platform, and then we have HubSpot, which is our CRM environment, where we also add the first-party intent that we can find through form fees and engagement on the website. And then that combination then triggers a task to the BDR owning that territory and that account. So they have account lists that they are responsible for to ongoingly open up and discuss with, right? And then they start their outreach. The AE gets the same signal and starts a higher level of outreach. So SDR, BDR will go towards, let's say, VP marketing. And then the AE, who we are all senior, by the way, all of the AEs we have in N.Rich, we're all senior. We can do really good conversation with C-level. So then we do also very tailored outreach from the AE towards the C-level. So CMO, CRO, right? So this happens in tandem. The goal with all of these efforts is to get our brand name, to get N.Rich to be comfortable for this account. Comfortable in what they see, trust in what they see. Like N.Rich is everywhere. They seem to be trustworthy. They have cases that relate to us. They have industry peers of us in their portfolio. They have an interview with that C-level over there. Obviously, they know what they're doing, right? So when we reach out, we don't reach out to get a meeting. That's not the first step. What we do when we reach out is to either invite them to the coming webinar or hot seat discussion, to join as a guest, or to join a dinner, right? So this is the first step. Once they're at the dinner, I can give you guys an example. In Q3 last year, we had a dinner here in Stockholm. We generated 5 closed deals within Q4 from that dinner. We had 30 people there in total. We still have things in pipe that hasn't closed yet that comes from this dinner. So for us, the ROI is all of these efforts. Because we often, when I talk to CMOs, I hear a lot about attribution. The reason why I hear a lot about attribution is because marketing is being asked from their C-level leadership to prove the point of them, like ongoingly. So they try to hunt, when was the last download? When was someone filling out a form? Did we get a visit to the website? Because they're trying to defend their purpose in the organization to a higher extent now, because the budget's being cut because of the situation we're in the
because we still see it as 2 different topics, more or less. Not one. And that's the interesting part, right? What we talked about before with the silos, that's exactly the challenges. It was like not everything comes up out of one hand, right? And that's why
it never does. So I can give you guys an example. One of the dinner guests that came to that dinner in Q3 started looking at N.Rich 2024. We have engagement on ads, we have sales engagement, we have ongoing conversations between AEs and BDRs and the account. We have market engagement, so ads, engaging in LinkedIn campaigns, engaging on our website, and then we have a few meetings from sales, and then it progresses. And when they were ready, they had the first meeting with us because they came back to us and be like, now we're ready to go. We saw the signals happening. So if they wouldn't have reached out, we would have reached out that week. So they came back and asked for an actual meeting to explore because
and then you made it.
And then we closed, yes. And then that closing took 6 weeks. We have huge annual contract values. The actual from first real discovery to close one was 6 weeks. It's a huge company in the Nordics, because they were already going through the motion with us. And most companies will have that engagement on the marketing side, and sales does nothing for a year and a half. It's insane to me that we will leave this.
Let's move to the second tactic. Do you have a second tactic where you say you applied it, you realized somehow it worked? Maybe let's talk a little bit of metrics as well, would be nice. When do you see a tactic works?
So it depends on the tactic, obviously. When it comes to our Mixbound motion from the SDR side and the BDR side that we have, one of the things because when I came in, this was in August last year. So I came in August, head up the BDR team. We had 12 people at the time. And one of the tactics that we did was that we did, this is imagination again. We have to have imagination and creativity. One of the tactics we did that we had our BDRs do analysis on one account. And that analysis was based on their ad spend, because that's what we work with. This is the conversation we want to have. How do you utilize your ad spend towards only your target accounts? So we did have them did an analysis on the ad spend that they made and how many of their buying committee members they were actually hitting with their marketing spend. Are you actually talking to the people who have the money to buy from you, or are you just talking to users? And they did that. This is a 20-minute work to put together a report based on this. And then that report then was published on LinkedIn from that person's profile, pinging the company and giving them a strategy on how to change this without changing any tech. So the goal was just, let's provide value. And if it was bad, then it was to highlight, this is not great. There's plenty of space here to grow. And then we pinged a few individuals in our buying committee. And then we did outreach on them. And then we compared that to doing the same type of tailored outreach, but without the open report. And if you look at conversion rates from outreach started to booked meeting, we increased it with 29% just to publish that 20-minute work that we did on those accounts. So this is a clear tactic that works. And the reason why it works is not what people believe, which is, but they were pinged and whatever. It's because we put time to give them advice for free. This is why.
And
they felt this vendor.
You generate a touch point where they actually looked at, right? So that's the
and there was no
they look
ask.
They see value, they save it as with something positive, and then the next time they're much more willing to open.
So once we emailed them and LinkedIn them, then they just responded. The response rates also went up.
Nice. I really like it. Let's move on to one tactic where you say you tried it, in Mixbound, in GTM, where you said we tried it and it didn't work. And maybe let's, after explaining what you did, when did you realize and how that it doesn't work?
How fast it took before we realized we had our foot in the mouth. Great. So when it comes to structures that haven't worked, I've been in this game for a long time. I've done a lot of stuff that hasn't worked. Let's just be honest with where most of us are, right? And I think, right, for us, or rather for me personally, the goal is never to succeed with all efforts we do. The goal is to try things and to quickly understand if it's not working. Right? This is the goal. So one of the things that we have done in the past, this was not an N.Rich, this was with one of the other companies I was at. One of the things that we did was that we put together a council. We tried to make a community. We put together a council because then we had an even smaller market for tier one. We tried to put together a council for them to meet each other and discuss, to be able to create an environment for that. We tried to do it online. That was one of the biggest mistakes, by the way. We should have done it physically because people really wanted to meet after Corona left. They really wanted to sit in groupings and discuss with each other for real. If we would have done it physically, it might have panned out differently. We had engagement metrics that had to do with the people in the groupings because we had two different groups. One was for C-level, one was for one level down. This was on the sales side, so it was sales communities. that was only coming from our target account list. One of the things that we realized, first of all, was that there were too many industry verticals involved. So the value they got from online sessions, since they weren't in the same vertical, was something that didn't really work. It was hard to moderate in the conversations because we did Zoom calls, basically. And the second part was that we skipped over the introduction to build trust between these people as peers. And this was a mistake as well. And it took us 3 sessions, 3 gatherings before we realized that, okay, format is wrong, because the feedback we're receiving, we had a feedback loop from all of the participants, is that this is too wide. We don't get the value we need. We want to meet in person. And the third feedback primarily was related to, I don't understand why I would share with the other people, right? So this was a tactic that we had in place that was meant to build the same type of trust that I described that we're doing at N.Rich. We just failed in execution. We didn't think it through. This was my idea. I didn't think it through. I didn't think about the fact that people want to meet. I didn't think about the fact that we need to make sure that they all feel trust for each other. How do we build that? I skipped over that step because for me, it was like, of course they will trust each other. That's not how it works, right? So this was a failed attempt to create a community that we could then benefit from or have profitability from. It didn't go well.
Yeah, the trust level I can really understand. I think that people quite often are very skeptical on, but when they have built it, it comes to the first tactics as well, right?
Yes.
But to wrap this up, so I think in the first tactic we learned we really need to dedicate our planning on who do we approach with what, and rather make it high quality than fast and too high scale. Look that we build the trust to generate interest, but as well be in top of their mind constantly to by approaching multiple buyer personas. And when you see the signal, then move fully
activate in, but don't activate in an aggressive, stupid way. Like, this is my advice here. Activate, but be smart with how you activate, and don't expect your sales team to know what to do. You need to teach them. This is not something that we can just roll out and tell sales, do as you do outbound. It doesn't work the same. So there needs to be a strategy for the account-based marketing and for the account-based sales, because your sales reps don't know this. They don't know. Don't make that mistake to just think that we just rolled it out and they just reach out. It's not going to work.
And in the second, I would say we more or less learn the same, right? We need to focus on quality. We need to focus on how we approach, and then put the focus again, how we can build trust to actually be there to be able to convert. And it goes hand in hand, even so it's very different approaches, or similar but different approaches. And then in the third, I would say it's interesting to see, because on a world where we get used to that everything is online, a lot of companies imagine that now it can just continue and build it up there. And I think especially time is precious, I think, is one learning. So if you make them to spend time, it needs to be worth their time. They need to see the value, they understand it, but you need to build a trustful environment, which is, I think, a great learning, because it is an overarching learning, which we see since 1.5, 2 years. The trust topic is so important, right? So if you build an environment where it's close, where we trust each other, people relax, calm down, and then they can really open up and share. So I think that's great. So Sara, thank you very much for being so open and practical. Maybe before we close up, where can people follow you? We put it in the show notes as well, but I think despite LinkedIn, you have another thing, right, where we can follow you, where you do content.
I have a newsletter. Yes, I have several actually. I have one on LinkedIn and I have one on Beehive. So if you find my LinkedIn, you will find links to that as well. And I write pretty openly and pragmatically about the things that's going on. And if you go back in time, you will see a few AI articles that predicted a lot of things before they happened. Because once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. So so feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Sara Storm. I have bust sides in the picture. I think if you will find me, I think you will recognize me. But so I'm the one who looks all edgy.
No, and I can really truly imagine. I really like the conversation, very open, very direct, a lot of actual learning. So that's it for today's episode of Beyond Revenue. Huge thank you to you, Sara Storm, for joining us, and to you for listening. If you found this episode useful, share it with all your GTM leaders, friends, and network who still stuck in inbound versus outbound debate. I think there we really took something with us. The new episode comes out now every Friday. In English, we try 20 minutes. I think is the right approach. Real tactics, real lessons. I'm Michael Jäger. See you next time.